Welcome back to Arcane Rush Tier List Part 2. Now we're going to dive straight into this and just jump in with Mimi's races and which ones are the best. Now Mimi was introductory of the gnomes, and on the back burner I believe was, what was it? It was, God, dwarfs were gone? Are they the only ones that were gone? I can't remember anyway. I think they were, ish, maybe. I think so. Dwarfs were gone. So anyway, addition of gnomes. Gnomes are in. Gnomes are top tier for Mimi. She's like, that's a whole aspect, that's what she's built around. But they're a very, 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 very loose top tier. They're not as strong as some of the other dealers in their specific races that we have seen, but they are levels to this, if that makes sense. In terms of what Mimi has to offer in terms of other races, she's solid. Orcs, the next one up. Orcs, in my opinion, were really strong using Mimi. I didn't ever grumble at seeing orcs there. Gonna put them just below, because when orcs came into play, you kind of had the Wheatstone Warrior, which was a tier 2, which is a kickstart ability, gives your orcs permanent damage. You would attack early on in the tier 1 stages, which is gaining coins. You then had the clan roster, which is before the ally in front of me attacks, deal my damage to the target of it. So it's doing extra things that you could power up around each other, all before you even hit tier 4. And as I mentioned, some other orcs, you had the Red Fang Rager, which is kickstart, give rage to your ally on the left of it. You could then give it multi-strike. You then had the Wimpy Axer, which is gain 5+ damage permanently every time that attacks. If you pair that with the Double Trouble, which is giving multi-strike and damage, that's fantastic. Get the clan roster just in behind that. There you go. You're on to a winner there, and the stats stay permanently. You can then pair that with some tier 5, which is like General Grax, which is give your units 2+2 once you end turn for each ally attack that you have triggered last turn. You're going to do that with a Wimpy Axer anyway. You're going to be triggering attacks. Multi-attack, the triggers twice, so you're getting 4+4 if you have him on your board. You then have the Taskmaster Tulrug, which is when an orc attacks, give all allies 4+1. If you then pair that with the tier 4, which is Earthshaker Elder, which is when an orc gains damage, give Overwhelm and 2+2. So you can have them permanently having Overwhelm, so multi-strike, gaining 5 damage, and Overwhelm. As I spoke about before in the other video, if you haven't seen that, go check that one out. With orcs though, those are 3 keywords that can change your whole game and push you to the top of the table, getting you winning runs a lot more smoothly. And honestly, this was the first kind of one where I thought orcs actually benefited a lot from their early game stuff. Demons, they do struggle with their early game stuff if you don't have right things to trigger with that, but orcs do. You're looking at tier 2, you're looking at tier 2s, tier 3s, you're going to take into your final battles, which are just kind of complemented by tier 5s, not reliant on tier 5s to actually see any benefits from that. Elves now again, they just sucked. Honestly, you'd opt not to choose them, and this won't happen for every elf. And I do love elves, and it pains me to say this, but they had a lot of combos and stuff that could kind of trigger, and they were kind of late on. And play Discover an Elf from Rhea True Shot, which is a tier 5, or we had the triple, which can triple with any elf, and we had the combo with tier 4 Valiant Swordman, which gave elves 1+1. You could then play with Starlight Freezer, which would then trigger that combo again. But to really see any benefit from it, it wasn't these elves that you would see the biggest benefit from, which is why they deserve to be where they are. Pirates this time, oh good, they could be higher. They could probably be the S tier because they're just so solid. Everything seemed to be working well in this time. You had Sinbad, you had Bounty Beak, you had Lathian, which I called Rayquaza because it looks like Rayquaza from Pokemon, but that's tier 5. You had Booty Bill, another tier 5. You have Captain Crab, which is plunder, free, give your units 1+1 permanently. Booty Bill, when as an ally's plunder ability is triggered, give your units 1+1 or 2, but yeah, 1+1 permanently. Sinbad had 2 treasures played, plunder ability would trigger, he would then gain stats. Combining all of them is just fantastic. Paired with Sahara Deadshot, which you're putting bounties on the board to get treasures out there, which then gets you plunder, that's a great. Or you could go down the avenue of Layfan, or Liafan, whatever, the Rayquaza one, and not have any bounties on the board, but still reap the benefits of treasures, because they would kickstart open 2 treasures, die open 2 treasures, which would then trigger Sinbad's plunder ability, which could also trigger Captain Crab's ability, which would then trigger Booty Bill to give permanent stats on the board just for literally kickstarting the game. You're gaining stats on the board literally for kickstarting the game. And I think Pirates were fantastic. Pirates always will be fantastic. Really a huge miss this season in my opinion. Neutrals now will go alongside the elves. They do have Blessed Matreon, they do have Progressive Trader, but that was it. Like, and we kind of seen that last season. They didn't really offer that much else. They lost Puppet Master this season, but they did have Shea Everlight at tier 5, which is Taunt, Kickstart, give a barrier to your units with Taunt. So you would essentially get a free hit for those units, but I mean, it wasn't enough to merit them being any higher. Demons now, demons will go in the middle. Like, I'm not aggrieved playing them there because they had some early game aspects added into them where you could kind of like get the benefit of a death and a discard, which was a Nether Grub, and give a random ally keyword. If you managed to discard that one, you could then benefit from that keyword permanently, or if you had to play them, because you would get them early on, you could also benefit from that keyword in the combat, which could give you Barrier, give you Revive, give you Cleave, give you Overwhelm, any random keyword it could possibly give. Sometimes you could roll like a Taunt, which doesn't benefit you at all, but I just feel like Demons kind of leveled up again, back to where they were way at the start of Fiddle. Nords this time kind of dipped down a bit from where they were originally, but which is natural to happen when you reach the heights so quickly. You're natural to drop down a little bit. But Yetis really came into play, and there was so much Yetis. Yeti Munchkin, you had Yeti Chonker, you had Yeti Ancient, you had Mama Yeti. You had just a bunch of Yetis, and you had Yakety Yak, which would then give you a Yeti as well. Early on, you had Yeti Clubber, and you had the other foundational parts there. But they weren't as good as they were originally when they first got introduced, which kind of puts them in the middle. For all that they offered, it was good, but could be outscaled easily with like gnomes, orcs, or pirates. Leaving us with dragons, and I thought dragons did do quite well. So they'd be like a high, maybe like a just below pirates, but kind of clear above demons and nords. But they deserve to be in that category because they did lose like the devouring ability of like devour the unit on my left and like that aspect, or like if a unit is summoned, devour that. They did lose that, but then they got Avenge. And Avenge was quite good. By Ironhide Alpha, tier 5 obviously, I have to talk about that. Which is Avenge, give your dragon 2/1 permanently. So if you've got the other revive one, which is Diligent Drake, Death, give a different ally revive and 2/2. Coming back into that, you get an Avenge and have another unit that can die. You can usually want to give that to like the Ascendant Warmth or something like that, which would give 1/1 for each dragon you control. Or the Breeze Heart, which is Death, allies gain 1/1. Or the Death Little Horn tier 1 unit, which is Death, give my damage to a random ally. Which is then coming back, so you're getting 2 of those damages to your allies, or those permanent buffs in that aspect. And you're just getting them managed to avenge a unit, which can help your dragons scale higher while they're already devouring different units. But that wasn't really the main aspect of this time. Out with dragons, when it came down to Mimi, it was more about avenging units and then gaining stats that way, which kind of drops dragons down a bit, which is really crazy to say because I thought dragons would be a mainstay. Always solid, can't really go wrong with that, but they did have to drop down a bit, which is natural. And we had 3 units that were just better than them, or races that were just better than them in terms of pirates, orcs, and gnomes. Now we're on to Mortimer. Now in my opinion, he is the best dealer there has been in the whole Arcane Rush Battlegrounds at the minute. His undead had like, what did they have? They had the usual kind of staple in the undead with the Malice in the Casket, Ratcatcher, Helping Hand, but we had a lot. A tier 3 Rockin' Bone, which gave allies revive. But the key ones is the tier 5s that I want to point out, and paired with the neutrals were good. The tier 5 Empress of Doom. My god. Undead we thought were good with those 2 that we were talking about that boost each other up. They give health and they give attack and 1/1 and stuff like that. Oh, Empress of Doom was unreal. Combine that with the revive ability which I just mentioned. Fantastic. She was Avenge, gained 2/2 or 4/4 permanently if the ally that died had a death ability. Now normally it's cursed abilities, like it is this season, it's cursed abilities, but this was unrivaled. I swear to God, Undead for Empress of Doom alone is fantastic. Any tier 5 that gets permanent stats, Foreign Legion, Big Brother 9000, Empress of Doom. Is there one for the dwarfs? I don't think so. There's tier 4 for the dwarfs, but those 3, Blasting Booties is a tier 5 for the pirates. We also had the cruiser, I can't remember what the other part is, but the cruiser which gains the bounty damage or like stats. Honestly, they are fantastic and the pinnacle, I believe, of Arcane Rush and being a good race. You trigger that with Baron Von Buff, another tier 5, or the Cahorn Psycho Chop Pop, Chomp Pop, whatever that is. Anyway, Kickstart, trigger the death ability to the ally on my left, and the Lord Sorrow Flare, which is death, deal my damage to a random enemy. You can trigger all of these before they even start in the combat, which we will get onto with pirates as well. But these undead were absolutely fantastic. You can combine them with the summoner as well. Definitely summoner, give 5+5 when a unit summoned. Or the River Styx Guide, which is summon a different tier 4 or 5 undead ally. It's absolutely fantastic. We then had the Ghoul Mistress, which is play give undead 3+3 everywhere. So they had those stats for your whole run. Not just until next turn, for your whole run. If you got that leveled up a bit with some of the shards, that goes to 7/7. Like, that was unbelievable. And I actually loved Mortimer so much because of this. Orcs for Mortimer, well, this is honestly, I love Mortimer so much as a dealer. He was fantastic. Orcs are fantastic in this one. They had your staple of your starting slaying abilities. They had one kind of tier 1 that wasn't that great. Really good stats, but death reduced my damage by 1 permanently. But you had the Tree Tusk, which was a tier 2. When an orc gains damage, give it 1 HP. You had the Wheatstone Warrior, which is kickstart, give your orc 1+1 permanently. You had ways to get orcs. You had Soothsayer, which I didn't really use too much because the stats weren't permanent. But these could have been good and was another way if you didn't find the Wheatstone, which is kickstart, all your orcs gain 3+1. Improve this 1 by 1 each turn. So they can be getting 18+5. Well, that wouldn't make sense. Well, actually, 18+6 would make sense. 15+5 also would make sense if that was improved. Well, no, it's 1+1. But anyway, you get my point of that one. Fantastic kickstart ability to give your orcs more stats. They have rage ability as well, which you have the Red Fang Rager, which is also fantastic. You have the White Fang Pack Leader. End turn allies gain 4 damage. Pair that with the Tree Tusk, they're also gaining HP in that angle as well. But the tier 5s, they are all tier 5s, just double checking, yeah they are. These are where it really comes into it. We had the Grudge Blade Gorm. Rage, so he had rage, you only need to focus on his damage, which is what he does, because when a different orc ally gains damage, he also gains it, which is beautiful. We had the Shaman Torg. When you trigger a play ability, give orc units 3+1. You trigger and play abilities in the recruitment stage, not the combat zone. Those stats are permanently. You had Scar, which obviously is just a good overwhelm attack unit, reduced my target's HP in half by 1. That only happens, like, not in half by 1. That only happens once. Skullthorn Gela was absolutely fantastic and a great way to get stats on the board. It's a playability. Triggering that with a Shaman Torg and the Grudgeblade Gorm, they're gaining stats. Tree Tusk in there as well, gaining HP. But you don't really need the Tree Tusk, you can just keep Shaman Torg. But this was play, give orc allies 5+5. Then you're like, alright, great, you get that one ability, what do you do next? Oh, you sell it and it improves its stats by 2+2. That can go to a 7+7, a 9+9, 11+11, depending on how many times you can get that and rerolls, and I just think that is absolutely fantastic. And that's why orcs are pretty high. Honestly, I don't really see much else going down in this, and it's really hard, but Mortimer was just such a good selection of abilities. We move on to elves, and oh my god, elves are up there as well. They're so good. Maybe could be a bit lower in other people's opinions because they were maybe a bit techy, a little technical to play, but elves were absolutely fantastic in my opinion in this one. And I feel like this really stepped them up a lot to be what they actually should be a lot more often than this one, because they kind of got like overlooked in the last few like races, as we've done with the tier list before. But I just feel like they had all the synergies this time around to actually come into it. You had like the tier 1s, which had barrier, you had like your next refresh has an elf. You have a Wilderness Scout, which was play, your cost like 1 less and stuff like that. You had the Brave Marksman, which was give 2 random elves 2+2. The Madcap Transmuter, which is start turn, give your elf unit to the left 3+3, then return it to your hand so you can then play it again, which is triggering elves, and that's what they're all about. You needed that opportunity there. Then you have combo, which is Gladewood Tactician, which is taunt and combo gain 1+1. Now a combo triggers if you play a unit in the same tier or higher, which you started doing when you're bouncing stuff to your hand. You had the Life Spring Narrator, which is when you play an elf, give elves in the shop 2+2. So when you even get to the shop to the later stages, if you've got that on your board and you've been playing elves, bouncing them back to your hand, you don't even need to buy more elves. Just bounce them back to your hand and then play it again, and that triggers that ability. You're getting like 40 elves just straight from the shop. You had the Mossy Elderbark, which would give you an elf. You then had a tier 4, which was Emerald Sanctum, which is death. Give elves in the shop 4+4 this game. A runner way to get stats on your elves before you even purchase them. So when it comes to getting like the Foreign Legion that we spoke about before, his stats are already stacked up. Then he gains stats in that one. Fate Collar was always fantastic to keep playing elves and make sure you're playing more elves to trigger combos. The Lunar Emiracy was fantastic, which is end turn give your units 1+1 for every elf that you have played. On sometimes you were playing like 10 elves. So that's 1+1, so that's 9+9 to all your elves that you have played. If you have more combos in there, you can trigger that. Combos really weren't the focus, it was just about getting stats, but stats are triggered, well, combos are triggered and give stats, which is the Valiant Swordmaster. We had the Arcane Archer, which is range. For every combo that you triggered, it would give 2 damage to all ally elves. You had the Gilfin Lumery, which was kickstart, give the elf to my left, ranged. We had Rhea True Shot, which is play, discover an elf, then transfer its stats. So you've been building up these stats by playing units or getting death stuffs to go onto the shop. So then when you discover Rhea True Shot, you can then buy her from the shop with her stats, play her, then get the elf. All her stats transfer to that elf that you've then discovered, which is fantastic because you can discover a Foreign Legion, which was fantastic because when a different elf ally gained stats, he gained 1+1. Similar to Big Brother 9000 from the Gnomes, that is what he did, and he became huge even in late game because your stats were already good. You already got the lines in place to trigger that up and make that fantastic. Pirates next. Now I want to put them up near there as well. I mean, if everything's so good, is anything actually good at all because it's all equally out? But I just thought Mortar was the most balanced. Pirates had Polly won a treasure, Kickstart open a treasure, they had Sinbad, the usual faces of Bounty Beak and the Brainblade Buccaneer. Then we had some other ones, which is when your pirate's ability in the front row is triggered, it triggers twice. You could do that once. That was Boredom Party. He was fantastic because if your Kickstart Polly won a treasure triggered, that would trigger twice. You're opening 2 treasures, triggers Sinbad's Plunder. Pair that with Booty Bill, who was in this one edition. When an ally's plunder ability is triggered, give your units 1+1 permanently. We had Mermaid's Kiss, which I actually thought was fantastic. Which is plunder 1, give a random pilot in the front row 3+3 permanently. So if you trigger that during combat or in the recruitment stage, those stats are still permanently. And boy did they make a difference. Triggered with Booty Bill, because that's only 1 plunder, so that plunder just triggering every time you play a treasure. You're then gaining 4+4 if you have those 2 on the board to play treasures, which is fantastic because that's their base level. They get higher when you upgrade them with shards. Booty Bill goes to a 2-1 and then a 2-2, and the Mermaid's Kiss goes to a 5-5 and then a 7-7, which is just fantastic and ridiculous. And all while you're doing this and triggering stuff, you can get the Sea Robber in there, which took me far too long to actually realise how good he was. But he opens a treasure at the start of your turn for each different pirate you have on board. That could be 5 treasures opening at the start of every turn. Triggered with the plunder abilities of Booty Bill and the Mermaid's Kiss, there's 5 additional stats you're getting at the start of your turn just for finishing a round. You pair that with Blasting Booty, which is gain 2+2 for every treasure you've opened this game. Your treasures are reaching the 70s easily if you put all this combination together. We have the addition of Admiral Fearless in this one, which is kickstart, deal 1 damage for every treasure you open this game to a random ally. Pair that with the one that triggers a ability first, or twice, sorry, in the front row. You're taking off many treasures you open, say it's 50. You're doing 50 damage to 2 units, or potentially 1, but can eliminate 1 before the match even starts up. I thought that was fantastic. Although you lost the Cruiser and the Sahara True Shot or Dead Shot, whatever, for the bounty aspect, it was all about treasures. Play treasures, get treasures, open treasures. Your hand became far too full because you couldn't actually get rid of all the treasures. Because when you got a pirate, you couldn't change the board because your board was that good you didn't want to change it. So you'd have to sell something and get rid of it. That was the only downfall with pirates, and pirates were fantastic. Honestly, Blasting Booties, you had that one. If you had multi-strike on that, forget about it. Because that's gaining 2+2 for every treasure you open. So if you've opened 50, that's gaining 100, right? Plus all the base stats from the permanent of Booty Bill and the Mermaid's Kiss and stuff like that. Then in multi-strike, so say it attacks once, then attacks again. It's gaining another 100. That stats combination is for every time it attacks. Not just once for the first time it attacks to gain these stats. That just stacks upon itself, and if you are never getting that down low enough, there's no way you can defeat that unless you got the Deathly Joke from the neutrals. But honestly, that just doesn't happen. Dwarfs now I think we found our like middle ground here of being like kind of in the lower aspect just compared to everything else. Dwarfs were consuming, I would say, and too much kind of effort, little reward for everything else. You could have went down the route of like elves. I went down so much, obviously other people will disagree with that, but orcs were just naturally good, undead was naturally good, and pirates were naturally good, whereas dwarfs kind of needed that bit of fortune. You needed the right things to line up in order to get good brews to make your dwarfs actually beneficial in the late game. But there was good ways to get brews, whereas Messiah this time around that we'll talk about, there isn't that really good way to get brews in the actual recruitment stage to give permanent buffs to your units. And that's kind of why they go there. They had the base like level stuff in the Skull Grogmeister was always a good kind of staple in a dwarf build because he gave himself brews and gives himself stats, which were always permanent. Nords now, they were actually really good. Like I had some really strong Nords, and I found out like a fail-safe tactic with Rhino Rider when he got introduced with the Nords. Before he got nerfed, I can't remember what it was, like he gave stats permanently, but then they changed them to like it's 2+2, but it improves 1 by 1 for every turn you go past. So not as good now, but boy, when he first came out, he was fantastic. You just slap taunt on him, he would survive, buff all your other units, they would keep attacking him, you'd focus all your stat building onto Rhino Rider, and then your other units just naturally survive anyway. Pair that with Yeti Drummer. When an ally survives damage, give allies 1+1. They removed for this season like the Seasoned Mountaineer, which frostbit an enemy, so Wolfgang wasn't that great this time around. But Yeti Munchkin was fantastic for tier 2, which is taunt, hurt, give your Yetis like damage everywhere permanently, 1+ damage, and it's all about Berserk. You got to the end with Yeti Geddon, which was play all the Yetis on the board, they absorb them. So he took all their stats, all their keywords, everything about them, he took that. So if they had Berserk, he was taking that. If they had Rage, he was taking that. If they had Taunt, he was taking that. He took everything about them and just became huge. Like you're literally building everything up to this moment with Rhino Rider. You're getting your Yeti Drummer's good. You're getting your Yeti Munchkin's good. The one that has Berserk is Yeti Ancient. Berserk, Rage. So Berserk and Rage from that one. When an ally Yeti dies, restore my damage to full. You didn't really use that too much because your Yetis weren't dying that often, but if they did, you had that as a failsafe. And with the Berserk ability, that's literally a refresh. You're going to reset on his health, which was fantastic. But you get that to Yeti Geddon, who took all the stats of everything there combined. With Rhino Rider, Nords were good. But, I mean, compared to everything else, like on the ranking system, they're mid. Because sometimes it didn't quite line up like that. Like I'm telling you to get Taunt on Rhino Rider, it's easier said than done. And sometimes you get too strong on trying to find like Rhino Rider or Yeti Geddon, and you just kind of leave your other board behind and things don't fall into place. And then orcs have scaled really high, pirates have scaled really high, or undead have scaled really high, and you get overrun by the end of the board. And that's why Nords go in middle. Gnomes now for Mortimer could be top tier, could be lower tier, depending what like success you kind of had with them. I'm going to slap them in the middle. They were good. Jetpack Rider came into it, which gave you augments, and then like we had Mr. Outmaneuver when a module, when you had Mr. Outmaneuver when you gave a module to a gnome. Gnomes gain 2+1 permanently, and that was a really good cycle. If you could get all of that, the fun cycle, if a unit in its row gained the module, they also got that one. You had the Bomber Gnome with each of these kind of like tier 5s that were really good, and then you had the Bimble Steelhand and turn give 2 random gnomes a random tier 5 module. So there was ways to get it kind of at the end and get it success, but if you didn't find that and didn't know what you were doing, like it took me a while to actually get there, I'll be honest. I avoided gnomes for quite a while because of this. I didn't really understand them, but once I did understand them, it was successful. I can say that straight up. Like it was great run, but it's all about key components. With the loss of Big Brother 9000, I feel that kind of hurt them a bit because then you were relying on augments, you were relying on all these stats, all these key payoffs, and things just didn't always line up like they should have, or things just took too long to line up. Because you're talking about like 3 tier 5s that you need to get there. And by the time you get to tier 5 shop, it could be too little too late, or by the time they're actually meaningful, because you're talking about turns gone by here. Like the Bimble Steelhand was end turn, so that's 2 turns to get 6 modules there. And Bomber Gnome is the exact same, like it's start turn. It's not as you play stuff, it's turns need to pass. And sometimes, you like realistically, the lobby could get drained so quickly, so you might not build your gnomes as high. Or it could go the other way, where the lobby's getting really strong and you're just not there strong enough. You don't just have enough turns, if that makes sense. in order to make it feel beneficial of actually running them. Neutrals is kind of where we end off on Mortimer, and they could be B tier, they could be C tier, and like they could be a bit lower. I think it would be harsh to put them any lower because they were solid. You had the progressive trader as always, but they didn't have Blessed Matreon. Now I'm a big fan of Blessed Matreon, so I kind of feel like that's important to me. But they had some units which gain stats, like the Fresh Recruit, which is gain 2+2 when you sell a unit. So you're selling, he's a tier 2, you're selling units around you till you actually find what you're looking for. And he's pretty solid, he gains good stats, but then you got no way to incorporate those stats into the later game. So it's kind of like, well, you got no dragons to devour it, so his stats are just kind of essentially wasted, but it gets you through a certain point. If you could like find a way to transfer those stats, then that could work. The Adventurous couple, though, for neutrals was a really good addition, which is Plague, give a random ally, Barrier, Cleave, Fly In, Multi-Strike, or 4+4. I thought that was fantastic. It used to be you got a random keyword plus 4+4, so instead of or 4+4, but I mean, that was pretty good. Like, I think that was a good substitute from Blessed Matreon in the tier 4 section, because you're then potentially getting the chance to get a random keyword, which could be Barrier, Cleave, or Multi-Strike, or some stats. Flying's kind of the weaker one, you don't want to roll that, but I mean, you'll take it because you're attacking back units rather than front units, which could be key important to certain races like Empress of Doom, where she's going to scale. If you manage to attack her first and get rid of her, then you're into a good start, because then you've got rid of the strong units, so it's just like the little spawning ones that you can then deal with. Or a neutral, which is fantastic, which is Xian the Necromancer, which is your death abilities trigger twice in combat. Then you normally have that one at the back because you want your death abilities to keep triggering. At the front, would you prepare with Undead, which when a death ability is triggered, like on your left, like that then goes twice, like we spoke about with the Undead, the Soul Flare or something like that. His ability could trigger twice at the start of the game because you've got those kind of like lining up that way, and then when he dies it then triggers again, so his damage can be like done 5 times from just one unit if you had that with you in your ranks. But then if you have like the flying ability, you can then take that out so that doesn't happen, and that's a way to combat certain things in that aspect. But overall, neutrals are kind of like mid. They weren't too great, and like that's just where we are. Let me know what you think about that one and what success you had with Mortimer, and we'll jump into Miss Saya. Okay, so now we're on to Saya, and this Miss Saya was the introductory of ninjas. And ninjas are an S tier race with Saya. Don't get me wrong, although I complained they were kind of boring to play with Saya as a dealer, her race for ninjas are S tier. They're top dog. You can see them beating a lot of things really. They scale really easily. Their first strike ability is fantastic. But by god, it's boring. Like, it's not as intricate as orcs. Well, orcs aren't even that intricate, they're pretty easy to play, but it's not intricate as demons, elves, or even dwarfs. Like, there's none of that fancy stuff that you have to worry about. They were just pretty straightforward. Get stuff that's summoned onto the board, make it stat up, make sure you get some helpers out across there as well, and you will have a good time with ninjas, always. There is no doubt in my mind about that. Undead, though, they're absolutely dreadful in this one. I mean, you can get them to work well, but they're going to the bottom of this list. Actually, they're actually going D for dead, D for dreadful. They are so bad in this one. Like the avenge ability and the spider and just everything's cursed. And honestly, the curse of the undead just ruined them in this. But every dealer has to have a bad race, and undead is just one of them. Like, that's unfortunately the way it is, and that just has to be the case with that. They are just so bad though. Even when you first get undead, like the spider summoner at the very start, tier 1, he is a 0/1. He does no damage and summons 2 spiders who are 1/1, which are cursed. So it doesn't really seem that great to me. Plus, with Sire's relics in the addition there, they don't really complement the undead too well. I just feel like you need a lot more from the undead, and we will see a lot more, and we have seen a lot more. Undead have been a mainstay, so I'm not too angry that they are quite bad this season. But, I mean, compared to ninjas, forget about it. Dwarfs now they are an interesting one. They can be good. We've had 2 successful runs. Well, 1 successful and 1 third place with them on the channel before. And I think that solidly in the mid, like, they can be good, but they can also be really bad if you don't get the perfect lineups. And if you don't know what you're doing, they're not easy to understand what needs to trigger when. Like, for me, it took me ages to actually understand that the Avenge, or like, not the Avenge unit, but the Cheers triggered effect summons a unit dwarf had to be triggered after a unit had died. It wasn't just like, oh, this is now an effect, so if a unit dies, it'll resummon. So you have to get the Avenge unit to then give brews, and make sure your brews are going to the right places at the right time and being used effectively. but kind of merits some a B. Like, they're not bad. B for brew, you know. Messiah's neutrals I do actually like. Like, you got Blessing Matreon in there, you got the Selling unit, which is the Illusionist, you've also got the Makeshifter, which can upgrade all your units, you got the, like, the mainstays, like I mentioned, Blessing Matreon, you do have, like, the Warhorse in Death Metal, which is play and you death, get a Warhorse, you can really benefit from them. There's Kickstart, give an ally of each race a barrier. There's Shapeshifter, who I've never mentioned, but it's always such a good neutral there. You can play that and it transforms into a plain copy of a random ally and then give it 3/3. Like, that's just great. Like, you can potentially get golden units from that, and I do that all the time. I always take the high rolls and run that risk of getting that. If I don't get it, then fair enough, I just sell the unit. It's a coin. But if you can take that and you potentially get the chance, it's a 50-50, depending on what you're looking for on your board, and it's a great neutral to have. Demons now, I think demons, do they go between, I think they go, like, honestly, my opinion, my experience, demons take far too long to get started with Messiah. But once they get started, they're fantastic. But they take far too long to get started, and you kind of get really easily brushed aside if you're higher up the ranks while doing demons if things don't go well for you in the first time. Maybe that's me, maybe that's my playstyle, and I need to change that up and understand that demons will be late game, and once I see the cards, then start going for that. But I'm all about early game. I like to gain the advantage straight away, such as dwarfs, looking for the anvil by tier 2, and opportunities to give brews to my units to give them permanent buffs, as you kind of would be with ninjas, looking for the summon straight away so you can get the cat, that summon into play, so that's abilities triggering. That's all what I want to see from demons, and that can happen with Mimic and like the Nether Grub. They can also be early game stuff, but you're looking to discard them, and that doesn't really kick in until tier 3. If you're lucky, you get an Imposter, which is, I believe, is a tier 2, but you're not that lucky all the time, and that's why I think demons go there. Gnomes now, I think gnomes are, this is crazy obviously for me, but I'm loving gnomes at the minute, and I think they're fantastic with Messiah. Like, they're naturally easier to play this time around, and the amount of augments you get, then you get like the unit Infinity Orb, which is like gains stats. What does it do? It gains 1+1 for each module you have given this game wherever this is. So you give modules to Autobot from turn 1, you're already gaining stats on your Infinity Orb, who is at tier 4, before you even reach in tier 4. So you're building that unit up, and that's what I talk about early game stuff. You get early game augments or modules onto your units there, they will benefit you in the long run. Plus, everything you build on has a beneficiary effect for what you're actually doing in real time. Not in the future, not in the past, in real time. So your Autobot who gains that augment goes up to like a 7-6. That's great to get you for our first few trophies, and you can upgrade the shop once or twice there if you believe in your ability, and depending on what trophies you've got there. You also have the World Spark Creator, which is Kickstart. Give your units 1+1 for each module your gnomes have, but they have to be in play, which is okay. It's not how many they have, but I've seen that get to 31, 30, so you're getting kickstarts of 1+1. That's 30 plus 30, you're kickstarting there. You got Big Brother in the mix there, and then his unit, like, he gains stats as well. So he's gaining 2+2, 30 times, that's 60 plus 60. He does jump up pretty high, even if you add him in late game, and modules are not hard to come by, or augments are not hard to come by in this mode with gnomes, and I absolutely love them. That's why they deserve to be up there. A lot of people might disagree, and honestly, that's fair. I can see that. People will have success with other races, but for me, this is where gnomes go. Nords go alongside the demons. Nords are good. I mean, they have Rhino Rider, but that's a patched Rhino Rider for as opposed to the start of last season. Yeti Drummer's there. Like, I mean, they've got some cool frostbite abilities, but I feel like they just hinder themselves too much. There is some units that are quite cool that you can destroy, and then their stats will get dispersed, but I think Nords just deserve to go there because too much hinders them this season. But honestly, that's fine. Like I said, like, demons and Nords have been good before. It's expected they're going to have a little bit of a drop off to balance them out, and then when ninjas coming in and gnomes getting the buff, like, that's just fantastic. And finally, that leaves our dragons, which naturally go into that position. Oh my god, that dragon tier 1, which is when devoured, give your units 3+3, then improves this by 2+2. Whoa. Whoever thought of that mechanic being a tier 1 once that's devoured, pure genius. Honestly, hats off to the developers there, because that is a fantastic addition to the dragons, and I feel like it's actually not really what they needed, but oh my god, it elevates them so much. I've reached my highest power dragons. I had a 2000 once, and I never even got close to that before. Like, this ability there, you just combo it, and even if you get golden, it goes up to like 18+18 out of nowhere, which is benefiting all the stats, not just the one that's devouring it, benefiting all the stats, of your dragons. Don't know how I feel about their tier 5s though, which kind of doesn't make them an S tier. Potentially could, I mean they're tier 5s, we're not going to drop them down. But it's the one where you play a unit and then you capture your strongest unit. Then when he attacks, he summons it with Curse, and then when he dies, it's there again. Like, that's good, but I feel like you kind of lose the unit on the board originally from gaining stats if you eat that one too early, so that does not scale up anymore. But I mean, if you can time that right and have like your one that's captured it nice and strong, you don't really have to worry about that too much. The other one, which is when that attacks, it captures the strongest unit, gives its damage plus 30 damages or 20 damage or 10 damage, whatever it does, and then attacks, but normally dies and then releases that unit anyway. On the odd occasion it does survive, you've got a strong unit, but they too kind of hit and miss, but that's fine. The amount of Devour options we've got with dragons this time around is fantastic, plus that tier 1 unit is just absolutely great as well. Honestly, I see no issues with dragons. And there's a tier 5, which when how many Devours happen this turn, he then gives his units like 10 plus 10. And I've seen that go to some crazy combos where I'm getting 6 Devours in one turn, and the yellow dragon tier 4, which devours a unit on its left, just feeds into that nicely. I think dragons are like mainstay, they're absolutely great this time. They're one of the, like, as you can see, the top 3 units of my choice if I had to be gun against my head, like picking units, that's where I would go. Let me know how you're getting on with Saya or anything else mentioned in these last 2 videos. I'm really keen to see your opinion and see what you guys actually think of all the races and what you think of my opinion from my experience, if I've explained it well enough to you. But until then, I'll see you guys on the battlefield.